Welcome to the subconscious, where every story is a warm embrace for your mind. I believe the stories we listen to before we sleep shape the way we feel and think. That's why I've created a space for positive, uplifting tales. Stories filled with love, kindness, and success, with no sadness, no drama, just pure comfort. Let these real-life inspired stories ease your mind, bring you joy, and gently guide you into restful sleep. So, relax, close your eyes, and let the magic of storytelling take you to a peaceful place. Story 1. A Dream Come True in Paris. In the spring of 2022, after years of long workdays and quiet evenings in a busy city, Claire Martin decided it was time for a change. For most of her adult life, Claire had dedicated herself to her career in finance, a world of endless spreadsheets, early mornings, and late nights that left little room for personal joys. Over time, a quiet yearning had grown within her, a desire to explore, to breathe, and to experience life beyond the confines of routine. Paris, with its timeless charm and reputation as a city of love, had always held a special allure for her. And so, on a bright April morning, she packed her suitcase, boarded a flight, and set off for a holiday that would change her life forever. Arriving at Charles de Gaulle Airport, Claire was immediately struck by the gentle energy of the place. There was an unmistakable mix of history and modernity in the air. A sense that every cobbled street and every sunlit corner of Paris held stories of passion, art, and quiet miracles. As she navigated through the busy terminal, her heart began to race with anticipation. Outside, a light rain had begun to fall, the droplets shimmering in the soft glow of street lamps. Claire smiled to herself, feeling as though the city was welcoming her with open arms. She checked into a modest but charming hotel in the Latin Quarter, a neighborhood known for its narrow streets, lively cafes, and a palpable sense of intellectual curiosity. The hotel room was small and cozy, with vintage wallpaper, a neatly made bed, and a large window that overlooked a quiet street lined with blossoming trees. That very first evening, as she unpacked her belongings and settled into the gentle hum of the city, Claire felt a calm excitement. Here, in the midst of ancient buildings and modern cafes, she could finally leave behind the pressures of her everyday life and simply be herself. The next morning, Claire woke early, drawn by the promise of a fresh start. After a simple breakfast of buttered croissants and a steaming cup of café au lait at a nearby boulangerie, she set out to explore the streets of Paris on foot. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the faint scent of fresh rain and blooming flowers. As she wandered along cobblestone streets, she marveled at the elegant facades of centuries-old buildings, the intricate ironwork of balconies, and the quiet charm of little gardens tucked between the urban sprawl. Her steps eventually led her to a small cafe named Le Rêveur. The sign was painted in soft pastel hues, and large windows allowed natural light to spill onto the worn wooden floors inside. There was something about the place that felt intimate and welcoming, an invitation to sit, relax, and let the day unfold slowly. Claire chose a table by the window and ordered a second café au lait, deciding to simply watch the city go by. Outside, Parisians and visitors ambled along the streets, some engaged in quiet conversation, others lost in thought. The atmosphere was gentle, the pace unhurried, and for the first time in a long while, Claire felt a deep sense of peace. As she sipped her coffee, Claire noticed a man sitting at the table next to hers. He was quietly reading a small book of poetry, occasionally glancing up as if he were absorbing the ambiance of the cafe. There was an ease about him, a softness in his expression that suggested he, too, was savoring every moment of the day. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and he wore a simple navy sweater paired with well-worn jeans. Although he seemed entirely absorbed in his book, every now and then his eyes would wander around the room as if looking for a quiet connection. After a few days of passing quiet mornings at Le Rêveur, their paths began to cross more intentionally. One particularly gentle afternoon, when a light drizzle tapped steadily against the cafe's large windows, the man set his book aside and looked directly at Claire. With a warm, friendly smile, he said, "Pardon me, is this seat taken?" His accent was unmistakably French, but carried a relaxed, welcoming tone that immediately put her at ease. "No, please, join me," Claire replied softly, returning his smile. "I'm Claire." "Bonjour, Claire. I'm Julien," he said, extending his hand in greeting. The handshake was firm yet gentle, and in that moment, a sense of familiarity, of having known each other longer than just a few shared mornings, seemed to bloom quietly between them. They began to chat about small things at first, the quality of the coffee, the delightful simplicity of the pastries, and the charm of the old neighborhood. Julien told her about his life as a freelance writer and photographer, and how he spent his days seeking out the hidden corners of Paris where the everyday turned extraordinary. Claire shared her own story of long hours and little rest, and how the idea of Paris had always represented a much-needed escape. There was no pretense in their conversation, just a gentle, honest exchange of thoughts and dreams, as if they were old friends rediscovering each other. Over the next several days, Julien and Claire made it a point to meet at Le Rêveur almost every morning. Sometimes they simply enjoyed a quiet coffee and a shared smile as they read or wrote in their notebooks. Other times they ventured out together, strolling through the narrow lanes of the Latin Quarter. On one of these walks, as the soft sunlight filtered through the leaves of ancient chestnut trees, Julien pointed out a small bookshop nestled between a flower vendor and a cafe. "I come here often," he said. "They have old books and manuscripts, and it always reminds me that every page holds a story, just waiting to be discovered." Claire, whose heart had been yearning for such stories, listened intently, feeling the city reveal its layers to her in a gentle, unfolding manner. Their conversations were easy, like the slow turning of a well-loved page. They discussed their favorite authors, the poetry hidden in everyday moments, and the simple beauty of the Parisian lifestyle. As the days passed, Claire began to notice how the city and Julien's company worked together to soothe her tired spirit. The constant hum of everyday life in Paris, the soft clatter of cafe cups, the distant laughter from a nearby park, and the rhythm of footsteps on ancient stones became a lullaby that gradually eased the tension that had built up during so many years of relentless work. One rainy afternoon, as the drizzle turned into a gentle shower and the city's streets shone with reflections of warm light, Julien invited Claire to take shelter with him in one of his favorite spots, a small, hidden garden behind an old stone building. They arrived at the garden as the rain slowed to a soft mist, and the air was filled with the fresh scent of wet earth and blooming roses. The garden was like a secret world, with winding paths, a small fountain softly trickling in the center, and benches where one could sit and listen to the quiet whisper of nature. As they found a comfortable spot on a moss-covered bench, Julien said, "I love places like this. They remind me that beauty is often found in the simplest moments." Claire looked around, taking in every detail. the way the droplets clung to the petals of a bright red rose, the gentle hum of a bee busy with its work, and the soft murmur of distant conversation carried on the wind. "It's perfect," she whispered. "I feel like I've finally found a place where I can just be, without any hurry or worry." In that moment, as the garden enveloped them in its quiet serenity, a deep warmth spread through Claire's heart. She realized that here in Paris, with Julienne by her side, she was not just on vacation. She was rediscovering parts of herself she had long forgotten. In the following days, their time together grew richer. Julienne introduced Claire to the small rituals that made Paris feel magical. On one morning, he took her to a vibrant local market in the Marais district, where vendors offered fresh fruits, cheeses, and fragrant herbs. The market was alive with color and sound, laughter, the calls of friendly vendors, and the soft rustling of paper bags being filled with treasures. Claire marveled at the simple joy of selecting a bright red apple or a small bouquet of wildflowers, and she listened eagerly as Julienne explained the history behind each stall and the traditions of the local community. Their afternoons were equally enchanting. Sometimes they visited art galleries that showcased works of unknown local artists, whose paintings and sculptures spoke of life's quiet wonders. Other afternoons were spent along the banks of the Seine, where they would sit on a low stone wall and watch the river glide slowly by, reflecting the light of the setting sun. As they sat side by side, often in comfortable silence, Claire began to see Paris not just as a city, but as a mosaic of moments, each one small and precious, yet together forming a grand tapestry of life. One memorable evening, after a gentle day of exploring and conversation, Julian invited Claire to join him for dinner at a small bistro tucked away in a narrow alley. The bistro was intimate and cozy, with flickering candles on each table and soft music playing in the background. The meal was simple, a series of dishes that celebrated local flavors: a light salad dressed in olive oil and lemon, a perfectly cooked fillet of fish, and a delicate dessert of fresh berries and cream. Over dinner, they talked about their dreams and the beauty they saw in the everyday. Julian confided that he had often felt that life had a secret language, a way of speaking to those who took the time to listen. Claire, in turn, admitted that she had once believed that the rush of daily life had drowned out the quiet voice of her heart. Now, with every shared moment, she was learning to listen again. As the evening deepened into night, they stepped out into the cool air and wandered slowly along the river. The Seine shimmered with reflections of city lights, and bridges arched gracefully over the water, as if protecting the quiet flow of time. Julian stopped at a small stone bridge and turned to Claire. "I never expected to find this kind of peace," he said softly, "or to meet someone who makes me see the beauty in every moment." Claire's eyes met his, and in that simple exchange of understanding and hope, a deep connection was born. It was a connection that needed no grand gestures or declarations, only the honest sharing of two hearts finally ready to embrace life's gentle wonders. The days turned into weeks, and with each sunrise over the Parisian skyline, Claire felt herself changing. Mornings began with a sense of anticipation as she rose to the sound of distant church bells and the soft chirping of birds outside her window. The city felt like a friend, guiding her to places she had only dreamed of. Quiet bookstores where pages whispered secrets, bustling cafes that promised a brief respite from time, and parks where the ancient trees held the memories of countless generations. With Julian by her side, each moment was imbued with a sense of rediscovery. a realization that life's magic was not found in big events alone, but in the accumulation of many small, beautiful experiences. One sunny afternoon, Julianne suggested a day trip to Montmartre, the historic hill known for its artistic legacy and panoramic views of Paris. They boarded a small train and soon found themselves amidst narrow winding streets lined with charming cafes and art studios. In Montmartre, the atmosphere was relaxed and bohemian. Artists set up easels in the plazas, capturing the lively scenes of street performers and passers-by. Claire felt as if she were walking through a living museum, where every corner held a story, and every smile was a brushstroke in a larger painting of life. During their visit, they climbed the steps to the famous Sacré-Cœur Basilica. At the top, with the city stretching out beneath them like a glittering tapestry, Julianne pulled out his notebook and began to sketch. Claire watched in quiet awe as he carefully captured the soft contours of the basilica and the delicate play of light on the city below. I like to think of Paris as a place where every view is a reminder of hope, Julianne said quietly, his eyes never leaving his sketch. Even when life seems overwhelming, there is beauty in every direction. Claire nodded, feeling the truth of his words resonate deep within her. Back in the city, evenings often found them sitting at small tables on outdoor terraces, sipping red wine and watching the world drift by. On one such night, as a gentle drizzle began to fall, Julianne and Claire found refuge in a tiny, family-run restaurant. The owner, a warm and jovial woman, served them dishes that tasted of home and heritage: stewed lamb, fresh vegetables, and a crusty baguette that was perfect for mopping up every drop of savory sauce. As they dined, they listened to the soft strains of an accordion playing in the background. The music was soothing and familiar, and it seemed to carry with it the promise that even in moments of fleeting sorrow, life was filled with moments of grace. Claire's heart felt light as she realized that each shared meal, each kind word, was like a small beacon guiding her back to herself. But not every day was without its quiet moments of introspection. As her holiday neared its end, Claire began to feel the bittersweet pull of returning to her former life. There were mornings when she would wake before the sun and, in the stillness of her modest hotel room, reflect on the gentle transformations that Paris had wrought in her. The city had taught her to pause and savor beauty in its simplest forms. A warm smile exchanged with a stranger, the delicate fragrance of fresh bread at dawn, the soft murmur of the Seine at twilight. In these moments, the thought of leaving made her both sad and hopeful. Sad, because she would miss the gentle rhythms of Paris, and hopeful, because the love and peace she had found there would remain with her always. On her final day, the weather was bright and clear, as if Paris itself wanted to bid her farewell with a loving embrace. Julianne suggested they revisit Le Rêveur, the cafe where their gentle journey had begun. As they sat by the window, watching the familiar scenes of passers-by and the soft interplay of sunlight and shadow on the pavement, they shared quiet memories of the time they had spent together. Julian reached across the table and took Claire's hand. "I know you have to go back," he said gently, "but remember, every moment here will be waiting for you. Our time together has changed us both." Claire squeezed his hand in return, feeling a deep gratitude for the way Paris had opened her eyes to love and life. That evening, as she prepared to board her train back to her home city, Claire took one last long look at the city that had transformed her. The station was filled with travelers, each carrying their own hopes and memories. In the soft glow of the station's lights, she clutched a small folder filled with Julian's sketches and little notes they had exchanged over the past weeks. A tangible reminder of the gentle love and understanding that had blossomed in the streets of Paris. In the weeks and months that followed her return, Claire found that the memory of Paris continued to influence her daily life. Mornings began with quiet moments of reflection as she sipped her coffee by the window, imagining the soft glow of Parisian mornings and the comforting murmur of distant church bells. Even in the midst of a busy schedule, she carried within her the sense of peace that Paris had given her, a constant reminder that beauty and love could be found in everyday moments. Julienne's sketches, now framed on her wall, served as a gentle beacon of hope, and she often reread the small notes he had written, each word echoing the quiet promise of that transformative holiday. As seasons changed and the years passed, Claire would return to Paris whenever she could, sometimes for a short visit, and sometimes for longer stays. Each return was like reuniting with an old friend. Familiar streets and warm faces greeted her, and Julian, too, remained a constant in her heart. Their connection had grown into a gentle, enduring love. A love that had begun with shared coffees and quiet walks, and that had blossomed into a partnership built on mutual respect, creative inspiration, and the simple joy of being together. Now, whenever she walks along a quiet Parisian street or sits in a small cafe watching the world go by, Claire remembers that first holiday as if it were a precious dream made real. The gentle cadence of life in Paris, a soft conversation here, a shared smile there, continues to remind her that true happiness is found in the small, everyday details. And in the soft glow of the city of light, she knows that love, hope, and the courage to change can come unexpectedly, quietly transforming a life that had once been filled only with work and worry. As you listen to this story tonight, imagine the gentle drizzle on ancient cobblestones, the warm glow of a cafe window in the early morning, and the tender moment when two hearts found each other in the quiet beauty of Paris. Picture the secret gardens, the narrow streets filled with whispered memories, and the enduring promise that every ending holds the seed of a new beginning. In the soft silence of your room, let these images guide you into a peaceful sleep, where every dream is touched by the gentle magic of Paris, a magic that assures you that no matter where you are, love and beauty are always just around the corner. Story 2: The Unexpected Promotion. In the busy heart of a thriving city, every morning brought with it a blend of routine and quiet determination. At the center of this daily rhythm was Sophie Thomas, a gentle and hardworking woman in her early 30s who had spent many years quietly giving her best at a successful advertising company. Sophie worked in the marketing department, a place where creative ideas and diligent work came together to shape the company's image. Despite her consistent contributions and friendly nature, Sophie often felt overlooked by those in positions of authority. Yet, each day, she arrived at the office with a warm smile and an unwavering commitment to do her best. Every morning, Sophie woke to the soft chime of her alarm clock in her modest apartment. The gentle light of dawn would seep through her window as she prepared a simple breakfast of herbal tea and a slice of toast. These quiet moments were precious to her. They provided a peaceful start before the day's hustle. After dressing in her favorite, smart yet comfortable outfit, a light blouse paired with tailored trousers, Sophie would leave her apartment with her bag in hand and step out into the lively city streets. As she strolled along the pavement, Sophie would greet familiar faces, a nod to the elderly man reading the newspaper on his stoop, a wave to the friendly florist arranging blooms by the corner. The city, alive with chatter, honking cars, and the distant music of street performers, always seemed to welcome her with its own gentle energy. For Sophie, these moments were reminders of the beauty in everyday life, a beauty that she carried in her heart even during the most hectic of workdays. At the office, a modern building of glass and steel nestled in the business district, Sophie's arrival was as quiet as her manner. Her workspace, a modest cubicle decorated with a few personal touches, a small photo of her family, a potted plant, and a few handwritten quotes, reflected her warm and unassuming personality. Here, among her colleagues in the marketing department, she was known for her steady work ethic, her readiness to lend a hand, and her ability to infuse even the most routine tasks with a touch of care. For many years, Sophie had been a silent force behind the company's successes. She meticulously prepared reports, crafted creative proposals, and often stayed late to perfect every detail of her projects. Yet, despite her efforts, her work was frequently taken for granted. Her direct supervisor, Mr. Roberts, a man whose busy schedule left little time for personal interaction, rarely acknowledged the extra hours or the thoughtful touches that made Sophie's contributions so unique. Even so, Sophie never complained. She believed that true success was built on integrity and quiet perseverance. One cool autumn morning, when the trees outside painted the sidewalks with shades of gold and crimson, the company announced a major new project, a campaign for an important client that promised to set new benchmarks for creativity and innovation. In a meeting held in a bright conference room, Mr. Roberts explained the details to the entire marketing team. The project was ambitious, requiring innovative thinking and flawless execution, and it was expected to be a challenging test of every team member's abilities. While some of her colleagues hesitated at the thought of the extra workload, Sophie's heart stirred with determination. Here was an opportunity, a chance to show the leadership qualities and creative talents that she had nurtured quietly over the years. With her gentle voice steady and clear, she volunteered to take on a significant role in the new campaign. "I'd be happy to help," she said simply. "I believe I have some ideas that could really make a difference." In the days that followed, Sophie immersed herself in the project. The office transformed into a hive of activity as teams brainstormed, researched, and drafted ideas. Amid the clatter of keyboards and the soft murmur of creative discussions, Sophie found herself at her desk deep in thought. She researched the client's background, analyzed market trends, and sketched out creative proposals on paper. The once familiar routine of her daily work had given way to a flurry of inspiration and collaboration. And, although the hours grew long, she worked with a gentle enthusiasm that was entirely her own. During one busy afternoon, as the team gathered in the break room for a short coffee break, a colleague named Marcus, known for his cheerful wit and quick insights, stopped by Sophie's desk. "Sophie, I've been noticing how you're handling the new project," he said, his eyes warm with genuine admiration. "Your ideas are so creative and thoughtful. They really make the whole process feel more hopeful." Sophie smiled softly. "Thank you, Marcus," she replied. "I just believe that if we put our hearts into our work, the results will shine through." Their brief conversation, though simple, lifted Sophie's spirits and reminded her that even in a busy office, moments of encouragement could brighten the day. As the campaign began to take shape, Sophie's contributions became increasingly noticeable. Her creative proposals were not only innovative, but also practical, seamlessly blending artistry with clear marketing strategy. Slowly, Mr. Roberts started to pay closer attention during team meetings. He began to ask for her input on key decisions and encouraged her to share her ideas with the entire team. Each suggestion Sophie made was met with nods of agreement and quiet applause from her peers. The turning point came during a particularly challenging week when the project faced several unexpected hurdles. A major aspect of the client's vision had changed last minute, and a critical part of the online presentation suffered a technical glitch. The entire team felt the strain, and tension began to build as deadlines loomed ever closer. In the midst of the rising pressure, Sophie maintained her calm and supportive presence. She organized a quick brainstorming session, inviting every team member to share their thoughts and potential solutions. "Let's work together," she said in a reassuring tone. "If we combine our ideas, we can find a way forward." Her suggestion resonated with everyone, and soon the room filled with a renewed sense of collaboration and hope. Over the following days, with Sophie's gentle guidance, the team worked tirelessly to resolve the issues. Late into the evenings, as city lights flickered outside the office windows, the team huddled around computers and stacks of notes. Sophie's patience, kind words, and willingness to shoulder extra tasks helped ease the tension. In one memorable moment, when a junior team member became overwhelmed by the sudden workload, Sophie took the time to sit down with her, explain each step of the process, and offer heartfelt encouragement. "Every challenge is an opportunity in disguise," she said softly. "Believe in yourself. You have the talent to overcome this." The reassurance in her voice provided comfort, and the colleague soon found her confidence restored. Then, one day, as the campaign reached its final stages, Mr. Roberts gathered the entire marketing team for an important meeting. The conference room, filled with the soft hum of anticipation, fell silent as he began to speak. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge the tremendous efforts that have gone into this project," he said, his tone both serious and sincere. "In particular, there is one individual whose contributions have been truly exceptional." All eyes turned toward Sophie, whose heart pounded as Mr. Roberts continued. "Sophie Thomas, your creativity, perseverance, and kindness have been the backbone of our success. Today, I am proud to announce that you are being promoted to Senior Marketing Coordinator, effective immediately." A wave of quiet applause filled the room. Sophie felt a mix of surprise, joy, and deep gratitude. It was an unexpected moment, a recognition that had been years in the making. Colleagues approached her with warm congratulations, and even Mr. Roberts, who usually maintained a reserved demeanor, offered a genuine smile of pride. For Sophie, this promotion was more than a professional milestone. It was a validation of her quiet determination and the belief that hard work and kindness eventually bear fruit. In the weeks and months that followed, Sophie's new role brought fresh challenges and opportunities. Her responsibilities expanded, and she found herself leading projects, mentoring junior team members, and helping shape the strategic direction of future campaigns. Despite the additional tasks, Sophie remained true to her gentle approach. She continued to offer a listening ear, a kind word, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. Her leadership was not marked by loud proclamations, but by the soft, steady influence of someone who believed in the value of every person's contribution. One day, as autumn gave way to winter and a light dusting of snow decorated the city streets, Sophie sat in her new, slightly larger office. The room was bathed in the soft glow of afternoon sunlight streaming through a wide window. On her desk stood a few personal items: a family photograph, a small vase of fresh daisies, and a notebook filled with ideas and reflections. As she gazed out at the bustling street below, Sophie allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She thought back to the early mornings filled with gentle hope, the long hours at her desk, and the supportive smiles of her colleagues. Every challenge and every small victory had led her to this very moment. In her new role, Sophie also made it a point to foster a culture of kindness and collaboration. She began organizing weekly idea-sharing sessions in a comfortable meeting room, inviting everyone on her team to contribute thoughts, suggestions, and even personal stories about their work. Over warm cups of coffee and light laughter, these sessions became a cherished tradition, a time when creativity flowed freely and every voice was heard. Sophie believed that true success was not measured solely by results, but by the relationships built along the way and the genuine care shown for one another. One crisp morning, as the office was filled with the soft sounds of typing and quiet conversations, Sophie received a small note pinned to the team bulletin board. Written in simple, heartfelt words, it read, "Thank you, Sophie, for always believing in us. Your kindness and guidance make every day brighter." Sophie felt her heart swell with gratitude. It was a reminder that while the promotion was an important milestone, the true reward was the positive impact she had on those around her. Over time, the success of the campaign became a celebrated story within the company, and Sophie's journey was often mentioned as an example of how perseverance, creative thinking, and kindness could change not only one person's career, but the culture of an entire team. Clients lauded the innovative approach, and the company's reputation soared. More importantly, Sophie's quiet example inspired others to bring their full selves to their work, to share ideas, support one another, and believe that even the smallest effort could lead to unexpected rewards. One wintry afternoon, when the world outside was hushed by a light snowfall, Mr. Roberts invited the team to a small celebration at a cozy restaurant near the office. The space was warm and inviting, with soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and a gentle murmur of conversation among colleagues. As they gathered around a long table adorned with simple decorations and a spread of comforting food, Mr. Roberts raised his glass. "To Sophie," he said with heartfelt sincerity, "for reminding us that every small act of dedication and kindness matters. May your journey continue to inspire us all." The clink of glasses, the soft laughter, and the quiet smiles that followed made the room feel like a family gathering, a moment of shared triumph and heartfelt appreciation. In the quiet hours that followed the celebration, Sophie often found herself reflecting on the twists and turns of her career. There had been moments of doubt, long days when her efforts seemed invisible, and times when the pressure of expectations weighed heavily on her shoulders. Yet, through it all, she had remained true to her values, believing that every effort, no matter how small, would one day be recognized. Her promotion was not a sudden miracle, but the natural culmination of years of hard work, integrity, and a steadfast commitment to making a difference. As the months turned into a year in her new role, Sophie embraced her responsibilities with the same gentle determination that had always defined her. She mentored new hires with warmth and patience, held workshops in the break room to share tips on managing stress and finding inspiration in everyday moments, and even initiated a monthly team luncheon to celebrate small victories. In doing so, She helped create a work environment where every individual felt valued. A place where creativity and kindness went hand in hand with professional success. One sunny spring day, as soft rays of light spilled through the windows of the office, Mr. Roberts called Sophie into his office once again. With a quiet smile, he presented her with a small, leather-bound journal, embossed with her initials. "This is for you," he said gently, "so that you may continue to capture the ideas, dreams, and moments that have made your journey so remarkable." Sophie accepted the gift with heartfelt thanks, feeling once again the affirmation of her path. She knew that every page in that journal would be a record of her continued growth, a testament to the power of perseverance and the beauty of gentle leadership. Now, as you listen to this story tonight, imagine yourself in a peaceful office where the soft clatter of keyboards, the quiet murmur of thoughtful conversations, and the warm glow of shared success fill the air. Picture Sophie, a kind, determined woman who, through consistent hard work and a generous heart, transformed her career in unexpected ways. Let her story remind you that every challenge is an opportunity. Every small act of kindness has a ripple effect, and that sometimes the most significant changes come quietly, like the turning of a gentle page. May you find comfort in knowing that your own efforts, no matter how unnoticed they may sometimes feel, carry the promise of growth and unexpected triumphs. And, as you close your eyes tonight, let the soft memory of Sophie's journey inspire you to believe in the power of dedication, kindness, and the quiet beauty of everyday victories. Sleep well, knowing that every day holds the potential for an unexpected promotion, a moment when all your hard work is recognized and celebrated, and the gentle light of your perseverance illuminates a path to a brighter tomorrow. Story 3. Strangers with a Secret. It was a cool autumn morning when Emily Thompson pushed open the door of the Hidden Cup, a little coffee shop tucked away on a tree-lined street in the heart of the city. The inviting aroma of freshly ground coffee beans and the gentle murmur of quiet conversations welcomed her like an old friend. Today, after months of relentless work and the weight of solitude pressing in, Emily had resolved to take a small detour, a break from routine, to simply sit and savor life's simple pleasures. She chose a table near the window where golden rays of sunlight danced across the polished wooden floor. With her latte steaming gently by her side and a well-loved book in her hand, Emily settled in, allowing herself a few moments of peace. As she turned the pages, she couldn't help but notice a man seated several tables away. He was absorbed in a dog-eared novel, his brow occasionally furrowing as if he were deep in thought. There was something inexplicably familiar in his quiet demeanor, a gentle aura that made Emily's heart give a small, curious flutter. That man was Daniel Carter. A regular at the Hidden Cup, Daniel had long found solace in the subtle rhythms of the cafe, the clinking of porcelain, the soft jazz floating overhead, and the delicate interplay of light and shadow. An artist by nature and by trade, Daniel spent many of his afternoons sketching the everyday beauty that often went unnoticed. Today, however, something was different. Every now and then, he would glance in Emily's direction, as if drawn by an invisible thread, until finally their eyes met across the room. In that brief moment, an almost imperceptible spark passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of a connection that neither fully understood. Emily's gaze wandered back to her book, but her mind couldn't shake the feeling that fate was at work. As she stirred her coffee, she caught sight of something unusual on the man's forearm, a delicate birthmark, shaped like a small, intricate swirl. With a curious impulse, she glanced down at her own wrist. And there it was, an identical mark, etched subtly on her inner arm. A chill of astonishment ran through her. Could this similarity be mere coincidence? Or was it a sign, a secret waiting to be revealed? In that moment, as the ambient music softly played in the background, the seed of an extraordinary mystery was planted in her heart. Over the next several visits to the Hidden Cup, Emily found herself drawn not only to the comfort of the cafe, but also to the enigmatic man who seemed to frequent its quiet corners. Each time, their glances turned into gentle smiles and, eventually, brief words exchanged over the counter. One rainy afternoon, as droplets raced down the window pane, Daniel approached her table. "Mind if I join you?" he asked softly, his smile warm and inviting. "Not at all," Emily replied, her voice tinged with both nervous excitement and relief. "I'm Emily." "Daniel," he said, extending a hand, which she shook with a subtle tremor of anticipation. "I've seen you here a few times, and I've been wondering if we might share a conversation." Their dialogue flowed effortlessly, from discussions about their favorite authors to confessions about the little idiosyncrasies that made them who they were. Yet, beneath the casual chatter, the unspoken mystery of the matching birthmarks lingered like an unanswered question. There was an unexplainable sense of déjà vu, a feeling as if they were two halves of a long-forgotten whole. One crisp Saturday morning, with the sky a brilliant blue and the air rich with the scent of fallen leaves, Daniel invited Emily for a walk in the nearby park. They ambled along winding paths lined with ancient oak trees and clusters of vibrant chrysanthemums, their conversation shifting naturally to more personal matters. As they strolled, the topic of family emerged, a subject both handled with a quiet vulnerability. "I've always felt like something was missing," Daniel admitted, his eyes distant as he recalled childhood memories. "Growing up, I had love, of course, but there was this lingering question, a part of me that always wondered about my origins." Emily's smile was tinged with bittersweet recognition. "I know what you mean," she confided. "I was raised with so much care, yet I've always had this silent longing, a mystery about where I truly come from. It's as if a piece of my heart is waiting to be found." They paused beneath a sprawling maple, the gentle rustle of its leaves providing a soothing cadence to their shared reminiscences. And then, as if by mutual unspoken agreement, they both mentioned, almost hesitantly, the curious mark they bore. The realization struck them in a wave of wonder and incredulity. Two strangers, bound by the everyday coincidence of a birthmark, now wondered if that tiny detail was a clue to a larger, hidden narrative in their lives. In the weeks that followed, their meetings at the Hidden Cup became more purposeful. Armed with determination and a deep-seated hope that answers lay just beyond the horizon, they began to piece together the fragments of their pasts. Their investigation started with local records and faded family photographs tucked away in old albums. Together, they visited the city's modest archive, poring over hospital logs and adoption records, searching for any reference to that unusual birthmark, a mark that seemed to whisper of destiny. One rainy evening, as they sat in the dim light of a small diner off a quiet street, they spread out a collection of documents on a weathered table. The clatter of rain against the windows created an intimate cocoon around them, a space where secrets could safely be unearthed. Among the yellowed pages of a decades-old family album, they discovered a black-and-white photograph of a newborn baby. The infant's tiny hand rested on a delicate birthmark, an almost perfect mirror of the ones that adorned their skin. Beneath the photograph were handwritten notes indicating a birth date and a hospital, one that both Emily and Daniel had, in fact, been born in. For a long moment, silence reigned at the table as the gravity of their discovery sank in. Emily's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she met Daniel's, and in that unspoken exchange, the truth began to form like the slow dawn. They were not mere strangers connected by a curious similarity. The evidence was overwhelming. This shared mark, this piece of their past, was the clue to a secret that could not be ignored. They were siblings, separated at birth. The revelation was as shocking as it was liberating. Emotions surged, a potent mix of disbelief, sorrow for the years lost, and a profound, overwhelming joy at having found one another. In the following days, both Emily and Daniel wrestled with their inner turmoil. They questioned everything they had ever believed about themselves, yet there was an undeniable comfort in finally uncovering a piece of the puzzle that had haunted them for so long. Determined to learn the full story of their origins, they sought out the help of Mrs. Lydia Harper, a kindly archivist at the city's Historical Society. With gentle enthusiasm and a wealth of knowledge, Mrs. Harper guided them through dusty records and fragile documents. Over cups of herbal tea in her cluttered office, she recounted the story of a young mother overwhelmed by circumstances and forced into an agonizing decision. A decision made out of love and desperation to give her children a chance at a better life. According to her notes, the two infants had been placed with caring families who had done their best to fill the void of what was lost. Yet neither family had known the full truth of their origins. Armed with this new information, Emily and Daniel felt as though they were on the threshold of a new beginning. They scheduled an appointment with the hospital where they had been born, meeting with a compassionate administrator who had preserved old records. In a quiet, softly lit room, she reviewed the archival files with them. Photographs, hospital logs, and handwritten notes all converged to confirm what they had begun to suspect. Their biological mother had been a kind, brave soul whose brief appearance in their lives had been overshadowed by circumstance. While the records were incomplete, they painted a picture of a family that had once been whole, only to be separated by forces beyond control. One particularly memorable afternoon, with a pale winter sun filtering through frosted windows, Emily and Daniel visited a small chapel on the outskirts of town. The chapel, its stained glass windows depicting scenes of hope and renewal, had been mentioned in one of the nurse's notes as a place where families had sought solace in times of crisis. Sitting quietly in one of the back pews, they allowed the serene atmosphere to envelop them. The soft interplay of colored light on ancient stone walls seemed to cast away years of isolation, replacing them with a profound sense of belonging. There, in that hallowed silence, the two siblings finally allowed themselves to grieve the years lost. A grief not of sorrow, but of the absence of a family they now realized they had always needed. They spoke softly about the times they had longed for connection, about how each of them had felt an inexplicable emptiness despite the love of their adoptive families. Their words, tender and honest, echoed in the quiet chapel like a benediction, reaffirming that even in the midst of life's most painful separations, there could emerge a bond stronger than they ever dared to imagine. In the days that followed, as winter deepened its grip on the city, Emily and Daniel began the process of reuniting not only with each other, but also with their adoptive families. The initial shock gave way to cautious optimism as both families came together in a series of heartfelt meetings. At first, the emotions were raw. Tears were shed, and old wounds were reopened. Yet, as the hours passed and conversations deepened, everyone began to see that this unexpected reunion was not a rupture, but a restoration. The adoptive parents, though initially overwhelmed by the bittersweet reality, embraced the siblings with open hearts, understanding that love was vast enough to welcome the truth, however complicated it might be. One evening, several weeks after their discovery, Daniel invited Emily back to the hidden cup, the very place where their mysterious journey had begun. Sitting at the same table by the window, they recalled their initial glances and the strange pull that had drawn them together. The cafe, with its familiar warmth and gentle hum of conversation, now took on a new significance. It was a tangible reminder that fate sometimes works in quiet, unexpected ways. As they sipped their coffee in reflective silence, Daniel reached into his pocket and withdrew a small, intricately carved wooden box. With trembling fingers, he opened it to reveal a faded photograph of a smiling baby wrapped in a soft blanket. The image was accompanied by a short note, scrawled in a delicate hand. "For my children, when fate allows them to meet." Emily's eyes filled with tears as she recognized the baby from the hospital records and the family album they had painstakingly assembled. In that moment, every mystery, every unanswered question, seemed to converge into a single, powerful truth. They were pieces of a once complete puzzle, now joyfully reunited. That evening, under a sky strewn with glittering stars, the siblings made a silent vow. They promised to support each other, to share in the joy of rediscovery, and to build a future where the past's secrets no longer held power over their hearts. Their conversation stretched into the night, filled with stories of childhood dreams, lost moments, and the tender hope of reclaiming a shared identity. They laughed at the absurdity of fate, marveling at how a tiny birthmark had been the thread that led them back to each other, a secret that was at once both deeply personal and universally poignant. In the weeks that turned to months, Emily and Daniel continued their journey together. They visited the places chronicled in their archival research, the hospital corridors where their first breaths were taken, the quiet park where their adoptive families had once met, and even the small town where their biological mother had lived. Each visit was a step toward understanding not only their origins, but also the strength of the bond that now defined them. In sharing these experiences, they discovered that the secret they had once regarded with trepidation was, in truth, a source of immense strength and comfort. Their days were filled with the simple pleasures of life: long walks through the city's historic districts, afternoons spent in quiet libraries poring over old records, and evenings of animated conversation over home-cooked meals. Along the way, they found that the journey of discovery was as much about healing old wounds as it was about uncovering lost truths. With each shared memory and every new revelation, they forged a connection that transcended the pain of separation, replacing it with a profound sense of gratitude for the serendipity that had brought them together. One particularly memorable afternoon, as winter slowly gave way to the promise of spring, the siblings arranged a family gathering in a sunlit garden bursting with blossoms. The event brought together their adoptive families, close friends, and a few kind souls who had offered support during their investigation. Amid the laughter and gentle chatter, there was an undercurrent of wonder, a recognition that something miraculous had taken place. The garden, resplendent in its riot of colors and delicate fragrances, seemed to celebrate the reunion with every bloom, every ray of sunlight. Toasts were made, stories were shared, and in every embrace and smile, the joy of rediscovery shone through. As the celebration wound down and dusk settled softly over the gathering, Emily found a quiet moment to reflect on the twists of fate that had led her to this point. For years, she had believed that the love missing from her life was romantic, a passion that would sweep her off her feet. Yet here, in the arms of a brother she had never known, she realized that the deepest love sometimes comes in the form of family, a love that is patient, forgiving, and enduring. In that revelation lay a quiet joy, a sense of wholeness that she had never before experienced. Daniel, too, felt a profound transformation. He recalled the days when his art had captured lonely cityscapes and solitary figures, each stroke a silent echo of a longing he could not name. Now, with every shared moment, he discovered that his canvas was being filled with the vibrant colors of connection and belonging. His sketches, once marked by a subtle melancholy, began to burst with life, a visual testament to the healing power of love rediscovered. In the months that followed, the siblings deepened their exploration of both their shared past and the future they would now build together. They took time to speak with those who had known their biological mother, piecing together stories of a life marked by both hardship and hope. Each narrative, whether told with tears or laughter, added texture to the tapestry of their history, weaving a picture of resilience and unwavering love. With every new discovery, they grew more certain that the secret they had uncovered was not a curse but a blessing, a hidden treasure that had, against all odds, brought them back together. On a bright spring morning, as cherry blossoms painted the sidewalks in soft pink hues, Emily and Daniel returned to the hidden cup once more. Sitting in their usual spot by the window, they shared memories of that first fateful glance and the quiet mystery that had spurred their journey. The cafe, now imbued with layers of meaning and recollection, stood as a monument to the gentle power of coincidence and the extraordinary nature of the human heart. With every sip of coffee and every exchanged smile, they celebrated the fact that life, in its infinite wisdom, had revealed to them a secret that transformed two strangers into family. In the end, the story of Emily and Daniel was not one of dramatic heroics or tragic twists, but rather a quiet, everyday miracle. It was a story of how a tiny birthmark, a seemingly insignificant detail, could be the key that unlocked a lifetime of questions and, in doing so, opened the door to healing, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of kinship. As they walked side by side through bustling city streets and serene parks, they carried with them the gentle reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary secrets are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by those who dare to look deeply into their own hearts. Years later, when the seasons had turned and life's tapestry had grown richer with the passage of time, Emily and Daniel would often reminisce about that rainy day in the diner, the soft-spoken archivist, and the quiet chapel that had borne witness to their transformation. Their story, lovingly shared with new family members and friends, served as a beacon of hope, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the mysterious ways in which fate weaves lives together. In quiet moments of reflection, each sibling would trace the outline of the familiar birthmark on their skin, a silent homage to the secret that had changed everything. And whenever they visited the hidden cup, they would choose the same table by the window, grateful for the serendipitous meeting that had sparked an adventure of love, discovery, and renewal. So it was that two souls, Once strangers defined only by a fleeting coincidence, found in each other the missing piece of their past. They learned that even the smallest clues, like the gentle swirl of a birthmark, could hold within them the promise of a deeper connection, a secret that not only explained where they came from, but also illuminated the path to where they were meant to go. Story 4. The Neighborhood Garden. In a quiet neighborhood on the edge of a bustling city, there was a vacant lot that had long been forgotten, a patch of earth where weeds grew wild and silence reigned. For years, the lot had been nothing more than an eyesore, a reminder of neglect amid rows of modest homes and small apartment blocks. Yet, for one man, that empty space held a quiet promise. Edwin Parker, an elderly retired schoolteacher with a gentle smile and twinkling eyes, had lived in the neighborhood for over 40 years. With his neatly combed silver hair and a slight stoop that belied a lifetime of hard work, Edwin had seen the area change slowly over time. Although many residents hurried past the vacant lot without a second glance, Edwin sensed that something beautiful could bloom there. Every morning, as he walked his dog along the cracked sidewalks, he would pause before the lot, imagining rows of vibrant flowers, fresh vegetables, and perhaps even a small bench where neighbors could sit and chat. One crisp spring morning, as dew still clung to the blades of grass along the sidewalks, Edwin decided that he would do something about it. With a spark of determination in his kind eyes, he began to gather old gardening tools from his small shed. There was an ancient spade, a battered watering can, and a pair of gardening gloves that had seen many seasons. He also collected a few seed packets from his pantry, a mix of marigolds, tomatoes, basil, and lettuce, which he had saved from past gardening adventures. His heart fluttered with anticipation as he stepped into the vacant lot, feeling the rough earth underfoot. At first, the task seemed overwhelming. The lot was overgrown with wild grasses and stubborn weeds that had taken root in every crevice. Yet, as Edwin knelt down and began to clear away the unruly growth, he felt a connection to the land. The soft scratch of his spade, the gentle pat of earth being turned, and even the distant chirping of birds created a peaceful symphony. With every weed he removed, and every clump of soil he shifted, he whispered quietly to himself, "One day, there will be life here. One day, this place will be a home for growth." News of Edwin's efforts spread slowly throughout the neighborhood. At first, only a few curious passers-by stopped to watch him work. Mrs. Lillian Harris, a retired nurse living 2 doors down, would lean out of her window and smile, her eyes glistening with memories of her own garden years ago. A young mother, Anna, carrying her toddler by hand, paused to ask, "Are you making a garden?" with genuine curiosity in her voice. Edwin would nod warmly and reply, "Yes, dear." I believe that every place has its own story waiting to bloom. As days turned into weeks, Edwin's solitary work began to capture the attention and hearts of more neighbors. One breezy Saturday morning, as Edwin was carefully digging a small trench for raised beds, a teenage boy named Marcus, who often rode his bicycle along the neighborhood streets, stopped by. "Mr. Parker," Marcus said shyly, "may I help you? I know a bit about gardening from my mom." Surprised by the offer and touched by the young man's kindness, Edwin welcomed him with a smile. Together, they worked side by side, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of a city waking up. In those early days, the garden was little more than a promise in the dirt. Edwin cleared the lot with unwavering dedication, and soon neighbors began to join him. each adding a small contribution. Mrs. Harris brought a packet of flower seeds, explaining that her own garden had once burst with color. Anna offered to bring a small pail of water and helped to smooth the soil around newly dug rows. Even Mr. Delgado, the usually gruff handyman from the block, showed up with extra tools and a few jokes that lightened the labor. With each helping hand, the vacant lot transformed ever so slowly. As the weeks passed, the bare ground gave way to gentle patches of green. Small sprouts pushed through the soil, tentative yet determined. Edwin would sit on a low, worn stool he had found in his garage, watching with quiet wonder as the tiny leaves unfurled in the morning light. In those moments, the garden became more than a project. It was a shared dream, a symbol of hope that even the most neglected places could be reborn with a little care and community. That first season was not without its challenges. There were days when the rain fell too hard, washing away carefully planted seeds, or when the heat of summer threatened to dry out the tender shoots. Yet, every setback only deepened the resolve of Edwin and the volunteers who had gathered around him. They would gather on long evenings, discussing plans for new rows, sharing ideas for raised beds, and savoring the simple pleasure of working together in the open air. In these quiet conversations, bonds began to form. A friendship rooted in the belief that they were all part of something bigger than themselves. As Edwin looked over the garden at the close of one gentle spring day, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. The vacant lot, once a symbol of neglect, had been transformed into a living tapestry of green and color. Every flower that opened, every leaf that shivered in the breeze, was a small testament to the power of community and the beauty of shared purpose. In that moment, with the soft glow of sunset painting the sky in warm hues, Edwin silently vowed that this garden would be a gift, a living legacy for the neighborhood to cherish for years to come. Summer arrived with its lazy heat and long golden afternoons. The community garden now thrived with the careful attention it received from a neighborhood that had learned to see beauty in shared work. Edwin's once lonely project had grown into a communal haven where people of all ages came together not only to nurture plants, but also to cultivate relationships. Each morning, as the sun rose and bathed the garden in soft, warm light, neighbors gathered to tend to the beds. They watered the rows, weeded between the plants, and laughed as they shared stories over the gentle clatter of watering cans and the hum of conversation. There was a palpable sense of joy that filled the air, a feeling that the simple act of tending to the earth was an act of renewal for both the garden and the community. One particularly bright day, Edwin and a small group of volunteers organized a work party. The garden was abuzz with activity as people dug new beds, built trellises for climbing vines, and painted faded signs with the names of the plants. Children scampered about, their laughter mingling with the soft music played on an old radio by the garden gate. Marcus, the teenage boy who had once helped Edwin, now led a group of his friends in planting a row of bright marigolds. Their youthful energy was infectious, and even those who had been hesitant to join at first found themselves smiling and lending a hand. In a quiet corner of the garden, under the dappled shade of a newly planted tree, Mrs. Harris shared stories of her own childhood spent in a garden much like this one. "There is magic in the soil," she explained softly to a circle of attentive neighbors. "When you care for a plant, you care for yourself. Every seed is a promise of tomorrow." Her gentle words resonated deeply, and many found comfort in the idea that nurturing life could heal old wounds and build new bridges. The garden quickly became a place for quiet reflection, as well as energetic work. Edwin often sat on a weathered wooden bench he had built himself, gazing at the vibrant rows of vegetables and flowers. He would watch as a young couple, recently moved into the neighborhood, strolled hand in hand, pausing to admire the delicate petals of a blooming rose or the fresh scent of basil. Their eyes would light up, and for a brief moment, the worries of daily life melted away in the fragrant embrace of nature. On a humid afternoon, when the air seemed to vibrate with heat and promise, Anna, the young mother who had first lent a hand, brought a picnic blanket and some homemade lemonade to the garden. The neighbors gathered under the gentle shade of a large oak tree, resting and sharing food. Conversations flowed easily about family, work, dreams, and small everyday victories. In that peaceful interlude, the garden was not just a patch of nurtured earth. It was a sanctuary where people rediscovered the simple pleasures of connection and community. Yet, the garden's growth was not without its moments of struggle. One day, after a particularly heavy rain, parts of the garden became waterlogged, and some of the young plants began to wilt under the weight of the soaking earth. Concerned, Edwin called for an emergency meeting with the volunteers. They gathered in a circle, their faces reflecting worry and determination. Together, they devised a plan, constructing drainage channels and adding fresh layers of compost to help the soil recover. The effort was arduous, and the day stretched long, but there was a quiet satisfaction in seeing the problem met with collective resolve. As the sun set that evening, the exhausted yet hopeful volunteers sat together on the damp grass, sharing a simple meal of bread, cheese, and fruit. The hardship had only deepened their bonds and underscored the idea that every setback was a lesson in resilience. In the weeks that followed, the garden continued to flourish. New shoots emerged, and the vegetables began to grow robustly. The air was filled with a mix of scents. The sweet aroma of tomatoes ripening in the sun, the spicy fragrance of basil, and the earthy smell of rich, tilled soil. Edwin often marveled at how the garden had transformed not only the physical space but also the spirit of the neighborhood. What was once an empty lot had become a living mosaic of hope, hard work, and shared dreams. As summer slowly edged toward the cooler embrace of early fall, Edwin organized a small harvest celebration. Neighbors brought baskets of fresh produce, crisp lettuce, plump tomatoes, fragrant herbs, and even a few unexpected surprises like vibrant purple carrots. They set up long tables in the garden, draped in checkered cloths and adorned with simple wildflower arrangements. There was music. Soft acoustic tunes played on a guitar, and laughter that mingled with the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. In that joyful moment, as the community feasted on the fruits of their labor, each person realized that the garden had given them something far more precious than vegetables. It had given them connection, a shared purpose, and the knowledge that even the smallest seed, when nurtured with care, could blossom into something extraordinary. Edwin, watching the celebration from a quiet corner near the newly planted rose bushes, felt a deep warmth in his heart. The garden was now a living testament to the power of kindness and community, a place where every person, from the youngest child to the eldest neighbor, could find a bit of magic and hope. In the soft twilight of that summer evening, as fireflies began to dance among the plants, Edwin closed his eyes and whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude for the seeds of hope he had sown so many months ago. As autumn arrived, the garden's colors shifted gracefully with the changing season. The once lush greens deepened into rich ambers and golds. leaves of copper and red gently fell from the trees, carpeting the ground in a warm, natural mosaic. With each falling leaf, the garden reminded the community that change was natural and that beauty could be found in every transition. Edwin continued his gentle stewardship of the garden, though now his role evolved into that of a mentor rather than a sole laborer. Neighbors who had once timidly joined him were now leading different parts of the project. Marcus, the once shy teenager, had taken charge of a small herb garden near the entrance, meticulously labeling each plant and even starting a small journal to record its growth. Mrs. Harris organized weekly garden chats, where she and a group of local retirees gathered to reminisce about old gardening days and share stories of past harvests. Even Mr. Delgado, the once gruff handyman, now found himself laughing heartily as he fixed broken trellises and painted new signs with bright, cheerful lettering. One cool morning in early October, as a soft fog hugged the garden and the dew shimmered on every leaf, a new visitor arrived. A young woman named Elena, fresh from a nearby college, had moved into the neighborhood. Drawn by the quiet beauty and the buzz of community activity, she wandered into the garden with a notebook in hand, ready to capture the life around her through words and sketches. Elena soon found herself welcomed by the friendly faces of those who tended the garden. "Welcome," said Marcus, extending a hand. "We're happy to have you here. This garden is our little sanctuary." Elena's eyes shone with gratitude as she took in the scene, the gentle chatter, the rustling of leaves, and the unmistakable aroma of earth and rain. Elena's presence brought a new energy to the garden. With her artistic eye, she began to document the daily life of the space. Sitting on a wooden bench, she sketched the quiet moments, the way a drop of dew clung to a petal, the smile on Mrs. Harris's face as she recounted a favorite memory, the quiet determination in Marcus's eyes as he pruned a stubborn herb. Her drawings captured not only the physical beauty of the garden, but also the deep emotions that each person carried. Over time, her sketches became a cherished keepsake for the community, a visual diary of a place where everyone's story was intertwined. During one particularly evocative afternoon, as the golden light of fall filtered through the branches, Elena sat beside Edwin on his favorite bench. The two of them talked softly about life, dreams, and the simple wonders of nature. Edwin's voice, gentle and reflective, recounted memories of a time when he had first fallen in love with the earth, when he had planted his very first seed as a young man. "You see," he said, his eyes distant with recollection, "every plant has its own story. Some bloom quickly and with great fanfare, while others take their time, emerging slowly and steadily. But in the end, they all add beauty to the world." Elena listened intently, her pencil capturing every word and every subtle change in Edwin's expression. In that tender moment, a quiet understanding passed between them. The realization that the garden was not just a project, but a living tapestry of every hope, every sorrow, and every joy shared by the community. As autumn deepened, the garden began to offer its own harvest, a mix of fruits, vegetables, and wild edibles that had thrived under the careful attention of its caretakers. Neighbors started sharing recipes and hosting small gatherings right in the garden. One crisp evening, under a sky streaked with pastel hues of dusk, a potluck dinner was held. Long wooden tables were set up among the rows of ripened tomatoes and fragrant herbs. Laughter, conversation, and the clinking of cutlery filled the air as families gathered to share the bounty. Elena, now an active member of the community, read aloud a short poem she had written about the garden. A poem that spoke of renewal, connection, and the gentle cycles of nature. In that moment, as the community sat together with full bellies and even fuller hearts, the garden revealed its truest gift, the blossoming of connections between people. It was in the way strangers became friends over shared tasks, in the quiet nods of understanding exchanged during moments of hardship, and in the collective celebration of life's small miracles. For Edwin, watching all these new bonds form was the sweetest reward he could have ever imagined. Each smile, each laugh, and each tear of joy was a testament to the belief that kindness, when nurtured like a seed, could blossom into a legacy of love. As winter crept in, the garden's vibrant hues gave way to softer, more subdued tones. Frost began to settle on the edges of leaves, and the once warm earth cooled beneath layers of morning dew. Despite the chill, the spirit of the garden remained unyielding, a testament to the warmth that had been sown by its caring stewards. Edwin, though his steps had grown slower, continued to visit the garden every day. Wrapped in a well-worn wool coat and a faded scarf, he would gently touch the frost-kissed petals of the remaining blooms, as if thanking them for their perseverance. One snowy morning, as the neighborhood prepared for a light dusting of winter snow, the community gathered for an annual tradition that had started in the previous fall, the Harvest of Hope. Neighbors came together with baskets of produce, jars of homemade preserves, and freshly baked bread. The garden, though quieter in appearance, was filled with memories of warmth and togetherness. Long tables were arranged in the center, and a modest fire pit crackled nearby, its orange flames offering a haven from the winter chill. During the Harvest of Hope, stories were shared with heartfelt candor. Mrs. Harris recalled the first day she had seen the garden awaken under Edwin's care, her eyes brimming with the tears of joy as she realized that even the most neglected places could be transformed by love. Marcus spoke about his own transformation, from a quiet, reserved boy to a young man who had discovered the power of community. Elena read her latest sketches and poems, each page echoing the gentle heartbeat of the garden and the shared dreams of its caretakers. Edwin, standing quietly at the edge of the gathering, felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and soft murmurs of thanks, he realized that his small act of planting seeds in an empty lot had rippled outwards to touch countless lives. The Harvest of Hope was not just a celebration of food. It was a celebration of community, of shared struggle and triumph, of the knowledge that every small act of kindness could yield a bountiful harvest. As the day slowly faded into a starlit evening, neighbors lingered in the garden. They sipped warm beverages, wrapped in cozy blankets, and continued to exchange stories that wove together the past and the present. There was a tender intimacy in those moments, a sense that every person present was part of something larger than themselves. The once vacant lot, now a sanctuary of life and memory, glowed softly in the moonlight. In that quiet radiance, every heart was filled with hope, and every soul was reminded that no winter was so cold as to chill the warmth of a united community. That night, as Edwin walked home slowly under the glistening streetlights, he paused at the garden's edge. The soft crunch of snow under his boots, the gentle whisper of the wind, and the lingering echo of laughter from the Harvest of Hope all filled him with a deep, abiding peace. The garden had given them all something precious, a place where every tear and every smile had found meaning, where every seed of effort had bloomed into a legacy of hope. With the passing of seasons, the garden became a permanent fixture in the neighborhood, its legacy growing with every new leaf, every burst of color, and every shared moment. By the following spring, the garden had evolved into a vibrant oasis, a living, breathing space where the community gathered not only to work, but also to celebrate life's simple joys. Edwin continued to be the quiet force behind the garden's transformation, though now he was joined by a diverse array of passionate souls. Neighbors of every age and background contributed their skills. A local chef organized weekly cooking classes using garden fresh produce. A retired engineer devised clever irrigation systems. And the children, with their unbridled enthusiasm, painted colorful murals on old fences, turning them into canvases of hope and imagination. One bright morning, as cherry blossoms began to paint the air with delicate petals, the neighborhood organized a grand celebration, the official opening of the Community Garden Center. The center was a modest structure built from reclaimed wood and glass, serving as a meeting place, a workshop space, and a small library of gardening books and community stories. It was here that neighbors shared recipes, held discussions, and planned new projects for the future. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was a simple affair. Edwin, flanked by his closest friends from the garden, gently sliced through a red ribbon as the gathered crowd cheered warmly. In that moment, every person present felt that they were witnessing the culmination of years of hope, hard work, and shared dreams. As the celebration continued into a gentle evening, stories were exchanged over cups of warm tea and slices of homemade pie. Elena, now deeply involved in the community, read aloud a passage from her latest poem, a tribute to the garden's journey and the power of unity. Her words, soft and lyrical, brought to tears to many eyes as they spoke of rebirth, connection, and the extraordinary magic of everyday life. This garden, she said, is more than just a patch of earth. It is a home for our hopes, a sanctuary for our dreams, and a symbol that, together, we can turn even the most forgotten corners of the world into places of beauty. For Edwin, watching the community come together in that beautiful space was a reward beyond measure. In the quiet moments that followed the celebrations, he often sat on the same worn bench he had used all those years ago. Looking out over rows of flourishing plants and listening to the soft laughter of children playing, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Every smile, every tender touch, every act of kindness that had sprouted from that once empty lot was proof that even the smallest seed of hope could transform a community. In the years that followed, the community garden became an enduring legacy in the neighborhood. It was a place where people gathered not only to nurture the soil, but also to nurture their spirits. The garden had become a living memoir of every life it had touched, a testament to the idea that love, care, and determination could heal old wounds, bridge divides, and sow the seeds for a brighter future. As twilight fell on one final serene evening of spring, Edwin, now content in his advanced years, sat quietly among the rows of roses and sunflowers. The gentle murmur of conversations, the distant sound of children's laughter, and the soft glow of the setting sun all spoke of a community transformed by a simple act of kindness. With a peaceful smile and eyes reflecting the countless memories of shared joy, he whispered to himself, "This is what life is all about." And so, the vacant lot that had once been a symbol of neglect became a beacon of hope. A neighborhood garden that not only brought forth vibrant blooms and fresh harvests, but also cultivated deep friendships, bound hearts together and reminded everyone that when people come together with genuine care, miracles can indeed take root. Story 5. The Generous Stranger. In a sleek, modern high-rise overlooking the busy streets of a thriving city, Alexander Alex Merrick lived a life of considerable success. As the CEO of a respected financial firm, Alex's days were filled with board meetings, important phone calls, and a schedule dictated by numbers and profit margins. Despite his material accomplishments, an elegant penthouse, a collection of expensive art, and the trappings of wealth, there lingered an unspoken emptiness in his heart. Late at night, when the city's lights blurred into a distant glow and the constant hum of business fell silent, he would sit by his window and wonder if the success he had so diligently earned truly filled the void within. One cool autumn evening, as a gentle breeze stirred the pages of an old book on his bedside table, Alex found himself reflecting on the day-to-day routine that had become his life. In the quiet solitude of his luxurious apartment, he recalled memories of a simpler time, a childhood filled with genuine smiles, shared meals, and the honest kindness of neighbors. That recollection stirred something deep inside him, a longing to reconnect with the humanity that seemed to have slipped away amid boardroom battles and financial spreadsheets. The next morning, as soft sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Alex made a decision. Instead of diving into the usual barrage of emails and scheduled meetings, he resolved to spend an entire day away from the polished corridors of his firm. His goal was simple yet profound: to step out into the real world and offer kindness without expecting recognition. A day dedicated solely to doing good anonymously. With deliberate care, he dressed in a simple, dark overcoat and plain shoes, leaving behind the crisp, tailored suits and gleaming cufflinks that had defined his image for so long. Before leaving his apartment, Alex took a moment at his door. He paused, hand on the polished brass knob, and looked back at the life he had built. A life filled with success but lacking in the quiet warmth of genuine connection. With a soft exhale, he stepped out into the brisk morning air, the sound of his footsteps echoing on the marble floor of the lobby. The taxi ride to the city center was quiet, and as he watched the familiar skyline recede, he felt a curious mix of anticipation and vulnerability. Today, he wasn't Alexander Merrick, CEO and titan of industry. He was simply a man determined to make a difference in small, meaningful ways. Alex's first stop was a local supermarket in a neighborhood he had often driven past without a second thought. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly, and the aisles were filled with the everyday bustle of shoppers. He moved quietly among the customers, his presence unobtrusive. In the produce section, he noticed a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, pushing a cart that held only a few items: some apples, a loaf of bread, and a small jug of milk. The woman, whose name tag on a discount apron read Marta, appeared to be struggling with her shopping list and the cost of everyday essentials. Without drawing attention to himself, Alex quietly approached the cashier as he lined up his own modest items: milk, a few bananas, and a small jar of honey. When it was his turn, he placed a generous amount of cash on the counter, enough to cover not only his own purchase but also to settle the woman's bill. The cashier, a young man with a kind smile, looked at him curiously as he explained softly, "I'd like you to cover the cost of the cart behind me as well." Alex's tone was gentle and his eyes sincere, and before long, Marta's total was paid in full. She looked around in quiet astonishment, unsure how this act of kindness had come about. Alex simply nodded, and, with a small smile, stepped away. As he left the store, the early morning sun glinted off the wet pavement, and Alex felt the first stirrings of a deep, unexpected warmth. He had taken the first step, a quiet act that, while simple in nature, began to chip away at the walls he had built around his heart. That single moment in the supermarket would be the first of many gentle gestures throughout the day. Alex's mind swirled with questions as he walked the busy sidewalks. Would people notice? Would his anonymity matter? But these thoughts were soon replaced by a sense of purpose. Today, he was determined not to seek accolades or recognition. His reward was the knowledge that even a small act of generosity could ripple outwards, touching lives in ways he might never fully see. He decided his next stop would be a small park not far from the supermarket. A green, quiet oasis amid the city's ceaseless energy. The park was modest, with a few winding paths, clusters of benches, and a central fountain that played a gentle melody as water cascaded over smooth stones. As he strolled along the path, Alex observed a group of elderly people gathered near the fountain. Some engaged in quiet conversation while others fed the pigeons. Among them, he noticed an older man struggling with a heavy bag of groceries, his hands trembling slightly as he tried to manage the load. Approaching slowly, Alex offered a kind word and, without fanfare, took the bag from the man. "Let me help you with that," he said softly, his voice warm and unassuming. The elderly man looked at him with eyes filled with gratitude and relief. "Thank you, young man," he replied, his voice quavering with emotion. Alex carried the bag to a nearby bench, ensuring that the man could rest and regain his strength before continuing on his way. Once again, Alex's quiet intervention made a difference. As the morning unfolded into a gentle day, Alex continued to wander through the city. With each step, he observed the small details, the way the leaves danced in the wind, the soft murmur of conversations in outdoor cafes, the distant laughter of children playing in a park. Every face he encountered carried its own story, and every moment felt like a hidden treasure waiting to be unlocked by a simple act of kindness. And though he remained anonymous throughout the day, Alex felt less alone. Each kind deed forged a silent bond between him and the strangers he encountered, a bond of shared humanity and quiet hope. By midday, Alex's quiet crusade of kindness had taken him deep into the heart of the city. The bustling streets were a tapestry of sound and motion, honking cars, street vendors calling out their wares, and the rhythmic clatter of footsteps on busy sidewalks. Yet, amidst this urban cacophony, Alex's actions formed a series of gentle, almost unnoticed miracles. His next encounter occurred as he passed a small, modest cafe tucked away on a side street. Outside the cafe, a young man with paint-splattered clothes sat on a low wall, a small sketchpad resting on his knee. The man, whom Alex later learned was named David, was a street artist struggling to make ends meet. His eyes were bright with creative intensity, yet his expression held a trace of weariness, as if the world had yet to fully appreciate the beauty he brought to it. Alex approached David quietly. "Your drawings are very beautiful," he said, pausing respectfully beside him. David looked up, surprised by the genuine compliment from a well-dressed stranger. "Thank you," David replied, his voice tentative yet hopeful. "I'm trying to catch a break, but sometimes it feels like no one notices." In that moment, Alex's heart ached with empathy. Here was a young artist pouring his soul onto paper, yet life's hardships had left him feeling invisible. Without a word, Alex reached into his pocket and withdrew a small, neatly folded note along with a generous sum of cash. "Please use this to keep painting," he said simply. He placed the note gently on David's sketchpad before slipping away. David stared at the note, his eyes wide with disbelief, and then he carefully unfolded it. In elegant handwriting, it read, "Your art matters. Let your creativity light up the world. A friend." The words struck David deeply, and tears glistened in his eyes as he clutched the note to his chest. In that quiet exchange, David felt seen and valued in a way he had never known before. Feeling the warmth of that small success, Alex continued his journey through the city streets. The afternoon sun now hung low in the sky, casting long shadows on the pavement and bathing everything in a soft, golden glow. He found himself near a busy intersection where a small crowd had gathered around a street performer. A young woman with bright eyes and a gentle smile was playing an acoustic guitar. Her voice, tender and full of emotion, floated above the murmurs of the crowd. Yet, as he listened, Alex noticed that the audience was small, and the performer's eyes occasionally betrayed a hint of uncertainty. Moved by the music and the evident vulnerability of the artist, Alex made his way through the crowd and reached into his wallet. Once again, he produced an envelope and, without any grand gesture, placed it discreetly beside the performer's guitar case. The envelope contained both cash and a note reading, "Your music brings light to those who listen. Keep playing, and never doubt your gift." The performer, startled by the unexpected generosity, looked around to see who had done this, but found no one in particular. Instead, the quiet mystery of the kind stranger warmed her heart. Her performance that day carried an even deeper intensity, as if buoyed by the invisible support she now felt. Later, as the afternoon wore on, Alex's path took him through a quieter residential area. Here, the pace of life slowed, and he observed the intimate details of daily existence. A mother helping her toddler tie shoelaces on a weathered front step. An elderly couple sharing a gentle laugh on a sunlit porch, and a young man hurrying along with a stack of books clutched to his chest. In this peaceful scene, Alex encountered a struggling single mother outside a small community center. Her shopping bag was worn, and the look on her face spoke of the quiet battles of everyday life. Without hesitation, Alex approached her, and in a hushed, respectful tone said, "May I help you with your bag?" The mother's tired eyes softened with surprise and relief as she nodded, accepting his assistance. Alex carried her bag to the center's entrance and, before departing, left a discreet note in her hand with a few extra dollars tucked inside. The note simply read, "Take care and keep going. Your strength is inspiring." Though she never saw his face, the kind gesture resonated deeply, lifting her spirits on a day filled with burdens. Each of these small, selfless acts, carried out anonymously, built a mosaic of compassion that slowly transformed the ordinary day into a series of extraordinary moments. As Alex moved from one quiet corner of the city to another, he found that the genuine gratitude in the eyes of those he helped was reward enough. The busy city continued its routine, unaware that a single day of unheralded kindness was quietly changing lives, one thoughtful gesture at a time. As dusk began to fall, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and lavender, Alex's day of quiet generosity took him toward a modest community center on the outskirts of the city. The building, with its faded brick facade and large welcoming doors, was a hub for local residents seeking shelter, support, and a sense of belonging. Inside, The atmosphere was warm, despite the cool evening air outside. Volunteers bustled quietly, preparing meals and organizing donated clothes for those in need. Alex had planned his next act of kindness carefully. He entered the center without drawing attention and made his way to the small dining area where a group of people were seated at long, battered tables. The conversation was hushed, punctuated by occasional laughter and soft sighs, a mosaic of life's struggles and small victories. Among the diners was a young mother with a tired smile, cradling her infant in one arm while speaking gently to an older man whose weathered face spoke of hard-won wisdom. Without announcement, Alex approached a volunteer stationed at the entrance, quietly offering to help. Together, they prepared extra portions of food, plated with care and garnished with a few fresh herbs. Alex then placed the additional trays on the serving counter, where hungry eyes soon widened in gratitude. In the midst of the meal, a frail elderly woman who had been sitting alone at a corner table received a warm bowl of soup and a small handwritten note that read, "May this meal fill your heart with the warmth of care." Her eyes sparkled with tears as she read the message, and in that silent moment, the room felt a little brighter, a little more connected. Outside the community center, as the stars began to twinkle in the deepening blue of the evening, Alex stepped out into the cool night air. He paused by a small bench to catch his breath and observe the gentle rhythm of the neighborhood. The echoes of soft conversations and heartfelt thanks drifted to him on the wind. Here, in this humble gathering place, the ripple of compassion he had set in motion was visible in every small, sincere smile. Yet, the day was not over. Alex had one more plan that he believed could make an even deeper impact. Earlier that day, while passing through a busy district, he had noticed a young man sitting on the curb outside a closed shop. The young man, dressed in worn-out clothes, clutched a battered backpack and stared blankly at the street. There was an air of desolation about him, a quiet sorrow that spoke of lost opportunities and lingering hardships. Determined to help, Alex walked over and sat beside the young man on the cold pavement. Without prying, he gently asked, "Are you all right?" The young man, whose name was Daniel, hesitated before nodding slowly. Daniel explained in a low, tremulous voice that he had recently lost his job and was struggling to make ends meet. Touched by his story, Alex reached into his pocket and discreetly handed Daniel a folded envelope. "Please use this to get back on your feet," Alex said quietly. Inside, Daniel found enough money to cover a week's worth of expenses, along with a note that read, "Your future is bright. Don't give up. Believe in yourself." Daniel's eyes filled with gratitude as he clutched the envelope, feeling that in that moment, someone had seen him when he felt most invisible. As Daniel thanked him softly and Alex resumed his walk, the night air seemed to shimmer with the promise of change. Each act of kindness, each compassionate gesture, had woven an invisible thread through the hearts of those he encountered. In the quiet solitude of that night, Alex felt a deep sense of connection, not just with the individuals he had helped, but with the collective heartbeat of a community in need of hope. He continued walking slowly, lost in thought and the gentle music of the city at night. The streets were calm, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights and the occasional hum of a passing car. Every step was a reminder that kindness was a language understood by all, regardless of wealth or status. And as Alex wandered beneath a sky freckled with stars, he knew that the ripple of compassion he had started today would continue to expand, touching lives in ways he could only begin to imagine. By the time midnight approached, the city's clamor had quieted into a gentle murmur, and Alex found himself standing on an elevated walkway overlooking a small park. Here, in the hush of the night, he allowed himself a moment of solitude to reflect on the day that had unfolded. A day marked not by grand gestures, but by a series of simple, heartfelt acts that had reawakened something deep within him. Sitting on a stone bench beneath a flickering lamp-post, Alex recalled each encounter with clarity. The grateful smile of Marta at the supermarket, the tearful thank you from the street artist David, the relieved look on the elderly man's face in the park, the quiet gratitude of the single mother, the warm atmosphere of the community center, and the soft, hopeful eyes of Daniel on the curb. All these images filled his mind like a mosaic of living moments. He thought about the small notes he had left behind, each a brief but potent message of hope and encouragement. They were not elaborate speeches or dramatic declarations. They were simple, sincere words, meant to remind someone that they mattered. Alex's thoughts drifted to his own life. A life that until now had been defined by profit margins and calculated risks. He remembered the lonely nights spent in a grand apartment, the endless meetings that rarely left time for genuine human connection, and the emptiness that followed even the most spectacular successes. Today, however, he had experienced a different kind of richness. In the anonymity of his generous acts, he had found a profound sense of purpose and fulfillment. It was as if the barriers between him and the rest of the world had dissolved, replaced by an undeniable connection to the people whose lives he had touched. He took a deep breath, inhaling the cool night air that carried hints of distant rain and freshly cut grass. In that silent moment, the weight of his former worries seemed to lift. Alex realized that generosity was not about grand gestures or public recognition. It was about the quiet ripple of kindness that, when shared, could change the course of a day, a life, or even an entire community. In the stillness of that evening, he also wondered about the future. Would the people he had helped remember that day? Would his anonymous interventions inspire them to pay it forward in their own ways? Though he knew the answers were uncertain, the very act of giving had already set a transformative process in motion. The seeds of compassion he had sown today would, he believed, eventually grow into a forest of kindness, a legacy far greater than any monetary success could offer. Slowly, Alex rose from the bench and began his journey home. His pace was unhurried, and with each step, he felt a gentle warmth spread through him, a quiet contentment that resonated in the depths of his soul. The city, now draped in the velvety darkness of night, seemed to whisper its own secrets of hope and renewal. Every softly lit window, every muted conversation, and every solitary figure on the street spoke of lives interwoven by unseen threads of compassion. Before reaching his apartment, Alex paused in front of a modest community notice board. Taped to the board were flyers about local events, charity drives, and community meetings. Without hesitation, he retrieved a few blank flyers from his bag and wrote a short message. Let kindness be the bridge that connects us all. Your small act of generosity can change a life. He pinned the note among the others, knowing that even a few simple words might spark another ripple of hope. Finally, as he unlocked the door to his apartment, Alex felt a sense of peace he had never known in his life of high-stakes business. There was no fanfare, no celebration, only the quiet, enduring satisfaction of having made a difference. He sat at his dining table, the soft glow of a single lamp casting gentle shadows across his thoughtful face. and allowed himself to savor the memory of every grateful smile and whispered word of thanks that had marked his day. In the early hours of the following morning, when the city was still wrapped in the deep blue quiet of pre-dawn, Alex awoke to a sense of renewal. The events of the previous day lingered in his mind like a cherished dream, vivid recollections of human connection that filled the emptiness he had once felt. As he prepared for the day ahead, his movements were slower and more deliberate. Gone were the frantic rhythms of boardroom negotiations and endless phone calls. In their place was a calm determination to nurture the spirit of generosity that had awakened within him. Sitting at his kitchen table with a simple breakfast of toast and tea, Alex reread the note he had pinned to the community board the night before. The words, written in his own hand, carried a truth he now fully understood. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, had the power to build bridges and heal wounds. Inspired, he made a promise to himself that this would not be a one-day experiment. From that moment on, he resolved to integrate generosity into his life as a guiding principle, a way to honor the intrinsic worth of every person he encountered. Over the next several weeks, Alex began to change the way he ran his business and interacted with the world around him. In board meetings, he advocated for corporate social responsibility, encouraging his company to invest in community projects and support local charities. He sponsored neighborhood events that brought together employees and local residents, bridging the gap between the polished world of high finance and the raw, authentic lives of everyday people. His approach was gentle and measured. He did not parade his generosity, but let it speak for itself through the improved lives of those it touched. On one crisp spring day, as the first buds of summer began to emerge, Alex returned to the same supermarket, park, and community center that had marked his first day of anonymous kindness. This time, however, he arrived not as a stranger in a plain overcoat, but as a man transformed by the power of giving. He met Marta at the checkout with a warm smile, exchanged a few sincere words with David the street artist, now working on a new series of paintings inspired by hope, and even found time to chat with Daniel, who had begun taking small steps toward rebuilding his life. Each encounter was imbued with a quiet familiarity and a shared understanding that their lives had been touched by something far greater than material success. One afternoon, as Alex strolled through a park filled with laughter and the gentle hum of community life, he noticed a small group gathered around a makeshift stage. There, the young guitarist he had once supported was performing to an enthusiastic crowd. The music was raw and heartfelt, a testament to the transformative power of art nurtured by encouragement. Alex paused to listen, feeling the simple pleasure of a shared moment, a reminder that every act of kindness, every small gesture, resonated far beyond its immediate moment. In the soft light of a late summer evening, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, Alex returned to his apartment, not with the rush of a man fleeing the day, but with a serene, reflective smile. In the quiet of his living room, he sat at a small desk and opened the leather-bound journal he had received as a gift long ago. He began to write, recording his experiences, his reflections, and the quiet joy of knowing that his life had found new meaning. His words were unadorned and sincere, a personal testament to the idea that true wealth was measured not by the size of one's bank account, but by the depth of one's compassion. As the night deepened, Alex felt a profound sense of gratitude for the many lives that had intersected with his on that day of quiet resolve. The city outside his window still hummed with life, a tapestry of countless stories unfolding in parallel, and he realized that he, too, was now part of that vibrant mosaic. With every generous act, he had discovered that even a stranger, acting with kindness and humility, could spark a chain reaction that transformed lives and built lasting connections. In that gentle, contemplative silence, Alex understood that his journey of generosity was only just beginning. The generous stranger of yesterday had become a man of quiet influence today, a man who recognized that every interaction was an opportunity to heal, to uplift, and to create a legacy of hope. And as he prepared to rest for the night, he looked forward with anticipation to the promise of tomorrow. A day filled with endless possibilities, where each kind deed was a stepping stone toward a better, more compassionate world.